Hi, and welcome to the show. I'm Charles, your host. With me today is Evan Rees, who is the VP of Marketing at Foxit Software, and Jed, who is an AI developer with a background in software development and economics.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Today, we're talking about the invisible shift, how AI is quietly rewriting the rules of work and power. Now, Jed, you've drawn comparisons between the AI shift and the Industrial Revolution. Where do you see the strongest similarities between these two?
Well, the main thing is for me that this is technology replacing workers in large scale, and this is what happened in the Industrial Revolution. You had people, you had sort of factories that had thousands of people weaving clothes, and then suddenly you had machines that could do it. And all of those thousands of people were just suddenly out of work. And then that's why you had the Luddites who hated the machines, and they went around smashing them up, saying this is a bad thing because we want to save our jobs. And you see it maybe not in the exact same way, but there's definitely big parallels between what's happening now and Industrial Revolution and really any kind of technological revolution. When people's jobs get replaced by technology so quickly, that productivity goes up, but you see big shifts in the economy and in the way people as a society view the shift as well.
Evan, are you seeing something similar, like a change in hiring or talent development?
I'm not personally. I do think. I mean, while the parallel is strong and the analogy is strong, I believe the Industrial Revolution was an overnight shift, right? I mean, it's not like it happened overnight. I mean, it wasn't an overnight shift. I mean, it was a gradual, incremental process of jobs being lost as the technology was introduced. So, I mean, as far as what we're seeing now, the hiring process has just shifted towards focusing on more individuals that I would say are akin to polymaths almost. I know personally, I find that individuals that are more curious or naturally curious or display qualities of natural curiosity tend to perform better in their roles because they are usually the ones that are early adapters of technology, and they're more inclined to use it in a way that it benefits them and their role. But honestly, I mean, if you look at AI and AI agents today, there are a handful of workflows that you can apply it to, but for the most part, you really have to dig in deep and find these ones that are processes that are well established, well defined, and AI can solve it without a human in the loop. Right. I mean, in the case of the Industrial Revolution, you did have humans in the loop, and then suddenly technology replaced a human necessity just completely. Right now, we have a situation where we still need humans to define most of our processes and then audit it or QA it at some point. Right. So I do think that we are incrementally moving towards that endpoint. I haven't seen it actually impact hiring or jobs. We haven't actually made any replacements, and I'm not seeing that even with other folks in the industry as well. Are you seeing that on the developer side, Jed? I mean, have you seen any instances where AI has been able to actually replace?
So from the developer side, what I'm seeing is essentially AI AI is increasing productivity.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that as a developer, what would have taken maybe 6 hours can now take just 2 hours.
Mm.
And in the short run, everything's good, and the company can just be happy with increased productivity from the developer, or maybe it doesn't show as one-for-one increased productivity. Maybe a developer can, feel like, oh, they can get stuff done quicker, and then they can, there's less pressure, let's say, so they can then take it easy a little bit. But in the long run, this is going to end up with there being too much work for the developers, or even in the medium term, you can get the same amount of work done with fewer developers.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the C-suite starts to try to push businesses to figure out how to get more productivity per head and look at it from a standpoint of, oh, you don't need 5 developers to do this. With the advancements in AI nowadays, you should be able to get it done with one really efficient senior level developer. I'm afraid of that future for sure. I don't want it to go that direction because I'm still ultimately, end of the day, a proponent of the strength of teams solving problems collectively and coming up with novel, innovative solutions. And you lose that when you have one individual that's interfacing only. And no matter how innovative these AI bots are, sure, you get the productivity gains, but sometimes you miss the forest for the trees because you're sitting there only looking down the tunnel.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it in the way I can sort of see it is like AI at the moment could be replacing junior developers.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having a junior developer work on something and then you review their work and give feedback of how they should do it better, you can just replace that one for one with an AI. I mean, maybe not exactly one for one. You need the junior developer can do certain things like have authentication to deploy or whatever, and the AI not necessarily. But I'm pretty sure it's coming in the near term. That kind of thing.
MIT had a task force report on work of the future, and in there they kind of aligned this with the internet. Right, when the internet first hit, that was the big thing. Right, the internet is going to destroy jobs. The internet is going to take jobs. But then the internet ended up creating jobs. But this is very different, right? This is not the same scenario. Or do you feel that that maybe we're overhyping this a little bit?
I don't think we're overhyping it at all. I mean, I haven't seen this level of disruption in Silicon Valley since Uber launched. I mean, I feel like the last major shift, and you can map these technological shifts all the way from the Industrial Revolution out. But I mean, yeah, I feel like it was Uber. Before that, it was the big e-commerce boom. Before that, it was, the internet, right? But you have these periods where these massive technological shifts just drive all of Silicon Valley and innovation forward. No, we're not overhyping it at all. It's real. I think the real question is, what is the actual impact going to be on employees and roles, right? How much can you actually remove the human out of most of these processes and still get the same result?
Yeah. So from a certain perspective, if your perspective is it going to fully replace the human, as in, are we going to just need AI and no humans? Then it's true. Like there's probably always going to be a human in the mix at some point. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it's good to have like a good varied team to come up with innovative ideas and to have like different come from different backgrounds. You could put different kinds of ideas together. But from another point of view, you like we say, you're going to need fewer people, and that's going to be the big shift. Well, what we saw with the Industrial Revolution, another parallel is that you had companies becoming larger than you could have imagined. The companies just grew and grew and grew. And you can imagine people thinking at the time, can a company grow bigger than this? But then you ended up with something like the West India Company, which essentially became a country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you have this if you think about having a workforce who can weave clothes spread out. Now, if you can now do that with a machine, you don't need to have many little companies that have their own machine. You just put them all in one place and you benefit from the economies of scale. So with the Industrial Revolution, what that meant is, in the short run and even the medium term, you had fewer companies monopolizing, getting bigger and bigger, and the sort of the rich getting much, much richer. But the everyday person didn't see the benefit for like 30 to 40 years. It took like a whole generation before that everyday person really started having their quality of life improved. In the short run to medium term, the everyday person either stayed the same, or in many cases their lives got worse because, well, they had a expertise that just wasn't valid anymore. Now they have to go look for a job, and especially in those times, there was really no safety net for people who lost their job. we're in a bit of a different situation now in that we do have more of a safety net for people, and there's more things to support people and retrain people. But I still see certain patterns like, okay, so it's not machines that were put in all in one place to benefit from the economies of scale, but you can see it definitely from the data. So, a company like ChatGPT comes along, and I mean, it was already a big company with access to a lot of data. But now I've just seen Google has released with their Gemini a video generation model, which is just better than what ChatGPT could create or what OpenAI could create. And that's because they own YouTube, probably. So when you see that a company just has access to more data, then it's going to become a natural monopoly again. And you're going to see these, in my opinion, you're going to see a similar sort of thing where you're like, these companies are pretty big, and can they get any bigger? And absolutely they can if they just continue to play things. I mean, you saw it, you can see it with these cloud services as well. You used to have smaller hosting services who had their servers, and you would rent server space. But now you just go to Amazon, AWS, or Azure, and it's monopolizing.
It is monopolized, but I mean, the cost of tokens also, I mean, I think, what was it, Perplexity or OpenAI, one of the two, just announced that their cost of tokens are extremely lower now than what it was before. I mean, it's becoming, from a cost standpoint, as this innovation happens more rapidly and as more people use it and adopt it, the cost of process, like the cost of intelligence, basically, is going down. So, I mean, on the flip side, there may be these major players, but the 5 major players and the mass adoption at the same time have driven costs so low that we now have computing power and intelligence that we can literally purchase at a price point that we've never had before. So that does democratize it to some extent and does allow, I guess, other developers, or at least, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I would see this as akin to almost the garage innovator era, right? You remember, I guess it would be, late 70s, most of the 80s, and then some of the early 90s. But that period was defined as the garage innovator, right? Someone that could still create a machine, engineer something in their garage, sell a patent, and then make an entire fortune off of that. We haven't seen that for a while. But with AI, it has sort of democratized the ability to code and develop applications, or to create solutions in a way that hasn't existed previously. So I do think we're going to see this big wave of young developers that, sure, they may not be classically trained and they may get fired from their job, but they're going to be the ones that are also in their basement making the next new app, launching it and putting it out into the world and monetizing it without much real effort. Right. I mean, with Cursor AI and Klein, it doesn't take much to get an idea off the ground into something that's fully functioning.
I spoke to somebody who says that AI is their co-founder for their business because AI was able to help them plot out exactly what they needed to do.
Yeah.
And everything that they do right now is just through AI. And it's really impressive. And I feel like, yes, we're definitely going to see a lot more of that, where people are utilizing AI to try to find ways to start up their own smaller businesses or consulting firms or whatever it is, while this technology is still new and not everybody knows how to utilize it in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, eventually I imagine the market will just get saturated with it.
Yeah. So the way I sort of interpret that is that, it's true that you're going to have, it's going to be more democratized in that anyone can have an idea, and the sort of barrier to entry is going to be way lower. So you're going to have more innovation. So instead of having like a few people who try to enter a space, you're going to have many, many people trying to enter the space. But I still think there's going to be one winner. The one winner will be better. It will be better than without this AI enabling more ideas and more concepts to come and try. But there's still going to be only so much market space. So, I mean, if you think about that garage, like you said, the garage developer side, we think of the successful ones. You could probably, name quite a few successful people.
For sure. I think we're seeing that right now, though, to some extent, right? I mean, with Claude, with Gemini, with OpenAI, with Anthropic, I mean, we have the major players but they fundamentally have shifted their focus. I mean, well, each of them have their own foundational models, right? So as long as the foundational models are different, we will see differentiation emerge in these systems. I do believe that. I do think that they are intelligent systems, and I think that intelligence emerges differently in systems like these. So I don't think there's going to end up being one major player. I think it'll be democratized, but I do think that the models will fundamentally start to differ from one another, and that intelligence will emerge and present differently. The way that, Perplexity is extremely good at producing research articles, and it's driven because it does pit models against each other, and the output is something fundamentally different from intelligence systems. So if you do have this world where I think they're calling it, what was the turn of phrase? Agentic swarms, I think is what it's called now. Agentic swarms, where you have all these swarms of agents competing with each other and processing the same way that neurons in a brain do every single time, depending on the routes that it takes to communicate with these agents. The answer and the output is slightly different, right? So I don't know. I'd like to see it. But I don't think that there's going to just end up being one that rises to the top.
Well, I think about it a little bit like during around 2000, the earlier internet, we had many different search engines. And it seemed like if you use the different search engine, you get kind of different results.
Who remembers Alta Vista?
Alta Vista. I remember there was Ask Jeeves, and there was AOL. I don't know which ones were in America versus England, but there was quite a few. And if you didn't like the result of one, you would just use another one. And so I can sort of see that we may be at that sort of stage now, but I still think in the end you'll have. I still think there'll be an outright winner in the end. Not that would mean you remove all the others. You still had Bing the whole time that you had Google, but Google was the winner essentially with Google search in the search engine. So it's for a long time anyway. The only thing that's really seems to have interrupted that is now the chatbots interrupting the search engines. And now whoever has the best chatbot is going to have the best search engine.
We're not the only ones in this AI race, right? I mean, the US has obviously got its companies and we're pushing AI as far as we can, but we are not the only ones in this race. China is also in this race, and they've developed some AI models recently that are very, very impressive, and a couple of models that just kind of creeped over here and said, that's neat, I'll take that, brought it over, and then they reinvented it in a way that it's more efficient. So what happens in that area? How do you see like the political responses in AI shaping over the next decade as we are in this? It's almost like an arms race, right? But it's an arms race for better intelligence or better AI systems.
I mean, if you look back recently, I mean, at least in the U.S., Biden signed the NSD 104 executive order. So, I mean, from a political standpoint, I mean, that administration was already planning for this future because they were limiting data access to foreign countries that were considered threats. I mean, China was on that list, right? And they didn't want to have bulk data transfers flowing into China. I think that's important that we do that from a U.S. standpoint, but I don't think it's really country versus country, and there's a problem. I mean, there's always going to be bad actors, right, in any country. I think the issue, though, is when you have aggregate data at scale, at mass, and another country has access to that and can plug it into an engine, it's the question about what's next, right? How do you use it, and will you use it for good or as a bad actor? But that's the real concern that I see today. I mean, it's DeepSeek exists, right? China has their models, but their models are going to be specific to their data that's fed into it for that engine, which is probably their own country and their own people's data. The same way that we're feeding these large engines for Anthropic and OpenAI right now. But how you use that, right, and how much exposure it gets, I mean, that's going to be the real point of concern. But yeah, I don't want to see mass databases leak and get fed into engines. I think we are also very there's a very dark future ahead of us if we don't have enough security protections in place, where if countries do get access to bulk data about U.S. citizens or any citizen for that matter, they can definitely sway political opinions and serve up ads and try to shift sentiments one direction or another.
Jed, what do you think? I mean, historically, when we try to set up regulations, the government is usually the slowest to respond. And if you saw the interview with the head of Facebook, it was like the government had no idea what they were talking about. And I still feel like they don't always know
You mean when
what
they
they're
put Mark
talking
Zuckerberg
about.
on trial?
Yeah, they put Mark Zuckerberg on trial. They
Yeah,
were
they don't
asking him all
understand
these
half of
ridiculous questions, and yeah, and they just look like fools because they don't understand the technology. So they don't know exactly what questions to ask, and how do you implement a regulation when you don't even know necessarily how it works. So yeah, Jed, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult topic. I mean, so if you think about like here in Europe, we don't have, there's not a major European country in this chatbot game. Here we use ChatGPT or Gemini. It's mainly coming from the US, and then there was DeepSeek, which was from China. So, so from a European standpoint, whatever we use, the data is going to a foreign country, and we have a little bit stricter data privacy rules here than in the US. We have GDPR, which means data is not allowed in most business cases. When we build a system, the data is not allowed to leave Europe. It's not allowed to sit on a US database or a database somewhere else. So what we look at more here is offline models that we can control. So you can have a model that's been trained somewhere else. You can have a very large model, and then we just try and host
Deploy
it
it
in an
locally.
offline way. And these companies are trying to provide that as well, provide offline options, because they know
Interesting.
that.
So you're seeing a shift. Yeah, so you're seeing a shift at an enterprise level towards at least businesses or your business or other businesses around you in your space wanting to purchase these kind of custom offline models. So there is a market for that right now, where they want to deploy it locally, and I assume it's because you get the benefit of being air gapped, right? If your business needs that, you can have it local, and you don't have to feed data back into OpenAI or one of these other systems.
Well, the main thing is just complying with GDPR.
Complying with GDPR, okay.
If you violate, it's pretty serious here. If you violate the
oh yeah, I mean, on the marketing
European
side, we consider GDPR at every stage of every communication, so it's always in our topics on our side.
Yeah, and then on the flip side, from like on the worker level, and we talk about regulation, like even at the company level, it's not really talked about. Like, what is the policy for a developer using ChatGPT for programming? Because business logic could leave, and for sure, people are putting in logic into ChatGPT and asking it to write a test or whatever, and no one's really talking about it. I think even if the policy is like, oh, you shouldn't use this, people are still going to use it anyway, because it just makes the job so much easier. So when I think about this, I think, okay, so if an AI has access to business code of many businesses, let's say it's not like API keys or anything. It's just the logic. From a developer point of view, I think like, okay, people who are higher up, who are not developers and are more on the business side, they worry about that. Like, oh, that means that sort of company secrets can escape, like whatever we're doing that's special in our code. When the truth is, nothing's really that special. Like the code, from my point of view, if the code is used to train an AI, and then the AI can give better output in the future, everyone's going to be using this anyway. So when we talk about like, oh, what should we worry about data leaks and data being used to train these models? I think it's also very important to ask, well, what kind of data what kind of data matters and what kind of data doesn't matter?
I mean, I remember, maybe not as much on the developer side, but it's not as big of an issue on the developer side, like you just said, but Microsoft had, when they first deployed Copilot, I feel like some of their enterprises ended up having internal AI data leaks that exposed all of everyone's salary levels at the most senior level, and you could easily just access the model as it's just any junior employee and just say, hey, what's everybody getting paid? And then one of the junior employees, what was it? It was Yeah. Oh, yeah. The unofficial spreadsheet. Hold on, I'm pulling it up right here. August 2024. There was a spreadsheet that got rolled in, and it was right at the time where it was learning how to take unstructured and structured data and merge it together. So it had access to like the company hierarchy, the roles, the employees, and then someone figured out how to just access the information and just pull it all back down just by navigating through the model. And then it was like, oh yeah, I can give you that information. I've got it right here. And it was supposed to be restricted, but it wasn't. So
Yeah, I think there was a similar issue with ChatGPT. I may be remembering wrong, but I think with ChatGPT early on, you could get like personal emails of famous people and
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
by asking it.
Yeah, they fixed that real fast.
So, so from that point of view, yeah, it's like, well, personal. If there's an extra avenue for personal data leakage, but again, okay, it's not great, but is it also so bad? Like, it's not the end of the world. It's not like you're being scammed or something.
No,
Okay,
it's
it's not
not.
nice, and we can fix it. We can,
No, but I mean,
try
as a
and make it.
marketer, I mean, I truly believe in the power of repetition with impressions, right? I mean, if you don't have good ethics as a marketer, you can very easily take a pool of people. And if I said, "Hey, give me access to everyone who may be politically centrist and a little left leaning, right, or a little right leaning," and then now I'm going to go serve some ads that disparage one political party and push them over the edge. You know what I mean? And that was the whole center of the Cambridge Analytica scandal with Trump and the Russian troll bots, right? For the first his first election. But that is a very real thing, right? And it's very easy to do. It's also very easy as a marketer to collect data. I mean, like you look at Facebook and you see all of these and those games, right? They're like or meta now, right? But like farmland, or it's like, what horoscope are you and what's your, your spirit animal? Like that stuff gets served to my grandma all the time. And she fills it out. And I'm like, Grandma, don't do that. Like you're literally putting in all of this information about you. And you're like, no, I get to know what bird I am or what spirit animal I am. It's like, no, this is someone that designed a survey to collect very specific data points about you. And it's disguised. It's disguised to tell you some output here, but we have no idea what they're doing with that data afterwards. No idea who they sell it to, and no idea what they serve up to afterwards. That's what makes me nervous is once you get that information. Or, I mean, you look at TikTok, right? And the big concern about these TikTok laws that have gone out in the US, TikTok feeds at such a rapid rate that every 30-second interval, their algorithm reads on what you stop and pause on, what you look at most frequently, and then what you engage with, right? Simply just the time that you engaged with one 30-second piece of content and how much time tells them what your preferences are. Now, if you take all of those preferences and tie that into, say, a product data feed, and now I see, oh, you have a preference towards this color, you're in this age range, you engage with this type of content, I can easily start to serve up just any product to you that I think that you're likely going to buy and turn it into value, extract value from you. And that's where it gets scary, because that's where it's just like, people then become a true commodity that the goal is to extract as much value as possible. And I hope that people at least have enough ethical considerations and morals that we don't get to that future. But AI is definitely powerful enough to do it.
Yeah, so these are the recommender systems, and I have actually designed a recommender system, so I have a bit of an idea
Really?
of the inner work. Yeah, and when so because some people find it so accurate, like when Amazon knows that they're pregnant before they know, and things like that, and start recommending baby products. And it is freaky. And sometimes people say, oh, they were talking to a friend about something on the phone, and then they started getting recommendations for that. And then they think that the companies are listening in, because how could they possibly know? And it seems to the layman, even an intelligent person would be like, they must be listening in. It's the only way. But it's actually much deeper than that. They don't need to listen in. The data points they already have just from the interactions, like you were saying, when you use TikTok, you see how long you pause on a piece of content for. The content you interact with is also defined. So you can think of it, oh, how do you recommend content for a user? But you can also flip it the other way around and say, how do you recommend users for a piece of content? So it's like, how do I? So what? So it's not just the question, what do I try and sell to you? It's also, I have a tennis ball. Who do I try to sell that to? And you, through these relationships in the neural network, you have some data that define some numbers in this sort of high dimensional space that define you, and then some that define a product. And you're defined by the products you interact with, and then the products are defined by the users that have interacted with them. And then and each user again is defined by a product, and it's like this mesh that just goes infinitely in and out. You define a user by the products and products by the users. You don't need any other information, actually. You don't need to know the person's age. You don't need to know anything about the product. You just need these interactions. And that sort of infinite mesh gives you more than enough data. I could have a recommender system where the only information I have from you is an ID, and all I have for the products is an ID. But I have many products and many users, and just those interactions and defining one by the other and going infinitely through it. The neural network learns things about you, like, are you pregnant? Without ever knowing anything about you other than those interactions. Because there's a correlation between this embedding that ends up defining you and a whole load of traits that a human would never even think of about you.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, again, the power of mass intelligence.
It's only going to get bigger from here. It's only going to go up.
Yeah. But the question then is, like you said, it seems pretty insidious. However, the flip side, because I'm more of a when I get recommended holidays because I looked at flights, sometimes when I see an advert and I'm like, oh, it knows that I'm interested in this, I'm often happy about it. I'm not as, maybe I should be more skeptical. I don't know. I know this is probably data that can be used against me, but I, as an individual, I don't feel like I'm being targeted or I'm going to be targeted on an individual level. And I just see the benefits. I'm not, if you remove the sort of skepticism and the intimidation, it's like your life is better. Like if you remember early internet, you had the pop-up ads that were trying to advertise all kinds of things that you're not interested in.
Oh yes.
It's much nicer now if I want to buy a car and I just get car deals all the time in my feed.
The personalized marketing experience has definitely improved. Now, I think it's dependent on what you engage with. I mean, if I were to, talk to somebody down the road that didn't like themselves and they engage with all sorts of dark corners and crevices of the internet, I wouldn't be surprised if they sat down. They're like, oh, I hate the types of ads that I'm getting. It's like, well, yeah, it's personalized to you. I'm like, but I'm in the same boat as you. I mean, like, I love it. Like, I'm looking for a new Delta credit card and I want to get as many points as possible. You just click on the site a couple of times and just wait a day. And then it comes back and suddenly it's like, oh, now the offer jumps from 60,000 miles to 120,000. It's like, yes, that's exactly what I was waiting for, purely because I just delayed, right? But yeah, no, I mean, I get ads for software all the time that is relevant, right? It's the personalized experience is better. But again, it's just how much data has to be collected on you to make that experience personalized. And at what point do you still have agency to opt out and eliminate it, right?
This comes back to the regulation as well, because you asked, like, okay, it can recommend me these things. What does it know about me? And it feels very intrusive. But as I just mentioned, it actually doesn't need any data on you. It just needs, and it doesn't need any data on the products. It just needs your interactions, which on the face of it doesn't feel that bad. It doesn't feel that intrusive. It's just the average person doesn't know that that's all that's needed. They feel like they must be listening to my phone calls. They must know my social security number. They must know everything about me. No, they don't need to. They know more about you than your wife in some ways, just through this infinite mesh of interactions. So then when it comes to regulation, they say, like, okay, the average person feels like this is very intrusive. So let's do something about the data points. Let's make it, I don't know. For example, let's regulate that the company can't know X, Y, and Z data points about you, these sensitive data points. But that does nothing because they don't need it to begin with. So when we talk about regulation being behind the technology and the understanding of the technology, that's where it can be a bit daunting, because you can't really imagine. Sometimes I think sometimes people who even develop the technology themselves don't fully understand some of that. This is where the information is really coming from. So how is a regulator, how is someone in government going to, the average person who designs a neural network and trains it doesn't understand the inner workings. It's one of the biggest sort of questions in this space. It's a black box. So the average sort of, I mean, there's probably not many people who design and train neural networks, but then you have the average person who does do that probably doesn't try to get the insights of what's really going on inside the neural network. So if they throw a load of data points at a neural network, including whatever sensitive data they have on you and the product, they probably don't realize that in the long term, the prediction is just based on the interactions and none of the sensitive data points.
It's just based on the interactions, yeah. So it can change at any point in time.
That's right. That's right. Well, Jed, AI developer, your background in software development, economics. Evan, VP of Marketing at Foxit Software. Thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you, Charles.
Yeah, thank you.
This was great.